I have a question for the people who are saying if they just kill all of Hamas, this will be over. If the Palestinians gave Hamas up, this would be over. This will be over as soon as they get rid of Hamas. I have a question for you. And hi, I'm Jewish. I analyze Israeli rhetoric where I can. I have a question. Of these two groups of people I'm about to describe, who do you think would be more likely if a terrorist walked up to that group? We'll have more people go, yeah, sure, I'll join. A group of people who have a job, a life, a house, wife and kids maybe. You know, they can go to the doctor when they need to. They definitely have food and water. Or a group of people whose neighborhood was just flattened. All the water they try to drink is contaminated with chemicals and bombs, dust. Their family is dead. They've been relocated to a refugee camp. They definitely don't have a job anymore. If someone walked up to those two groups of people and was like, we can fight this, even if they were super vague and didn't even say it was violence that they were going to do, we can fight this, we can stop this, who do you think is more likely to join? Because I think it's the people who have nothing left to live for. I don't think anybody would look at me and say the first group would be more likely to join. And oh, what's that? Studies, scientific studies showing that that's true. So showing that, NCBI, National Library of Medicine, Social Determinants of Health and Violent Radicalization. The Psychology of Terrorism Initiative saying that the creations of ethno-states and marginalizing certain ethnic groups will be more likely to radicalize those groups. So, wait, what's the cause of terrorism? Is it that those people are violent, terrible people who just want to hurt others the way they portray Hamas? Or is it that a bigger oppressing group pushed them and took away more and more of their rights and their liberties and their access to a normal life, pushed them until a couple of those people snap and lash out violently. And then they can turn around and say, oh my God, see, they're violent. They're terrible people. They need to be controlled. We need to keep them here. We can't let them have this. We can't let them leave. We need to make sure that they're away from us because they're all evil. When it was the violence that they did to them that pushed them to that point. Do you think Israel doesn't know this? I want you to think about it. Do you think that Israel doesn't have access to these studies? That Israel doesn't know what causes terrorism? That it's the lack of civil rights? Do you? I think they know. I think it goes hand in hand with them funding Hamas in the first place. I think they need a villain. Because it's a lot easier to justify keeping a group of people in a concentration camp if you say, well, there's some of those people are bad, we can't let them out, than it is if they were just living their lives. It's a lot easier to justify going in with soldiers and hurting them if you say some of them are bad. Especially if you made some of them bad. Which means that every time you go in and hurt them more of them snap. Because they have nothing else to turn to. Whose fault is that? Whose fault is that for doing the violence first? I also want you to think about the fact that even before this bombing, Gaza had rampant structural violence issues. Structural violence is something like, I'll just give you an example, like, we can't let you have this treatment from this hospital because you need this ID and these documents, but then it's almost impossible to get those ID and those documents, which means that it's not a person hurting you or killing you and doing the violence, it's the rules that are hurting people and killing people. In Gaza, before the bombing, people were rationing water because Israel didn't let them have enough water. The hospitals couldn't take everyone. Sometimes there's things that those hospitals couldn't treat, so they'd have to be on a wait list to get into an Israeli hospital, and they would die on those wait lists. That's structural violence. That's, the rules are you need to do this and wait and get into an Israeli hospital this way. You're going to die if you don't. That's structural violence. Everywhere in Gaza, in America too. You'll recognize that in the American healthcare system, absolutely. And it is violence. It hurts and kills people. That's violence. It's called structural violence for a reason. So I want you to think about that fact. I want you to think about the fact that Israel definitely knows that its actions of taking away their civil rights, of shoving them in this place, of making sure they don't have water and food, of making sure that everyone has a relative who's died because they couldn't get into a hospital and get medical care. They know that those people are more likely to snap. And once they snap, they hurt me. They hurt me. They did violence against me. I'm the victim here, when it was them who pushed them to do it. They know. Israel knows this because they need a villain. Think about it. Do you truly, honestly believe that carpet bombing all of Gaza without actually targeting any terrorist groups and making sure that civilians are feeling the worst of these effects, what do you think that's going to do? Don't you think that if Israel can keep saying, oh, but Hamas is in there, they can keep bombing it until they get all of it, until they take all the land they wanted to begin with? Don't you think so? Because to me, that seems like a very convenient excuse. We push these people, we are violent to them until they're violent back to us, and once they're violent back to us, we keep just hurting them so that more of them keep snapping and being violent to us, so we can keep saying, see, they're bad, and we can just keep hurting them. Whose fault is that? Do you think that if someone said, we can change this, without saying that it was going to be bombs or rockets, just we can change this, would you not join them? Not every single one of those people is literally firing rockets. If all your family was dead, think about it. Just think about it. Israel knows what it's doing. It wants its villain. It needs to be the victim. And please call your representatives. Please, what's happening is more and more horrific by the day. And don't look away.